Greetings. Today we will present our mathematics PBL project, which focuses on analyzing access to clean water in Malaysia. In this study, we compare data from Sabah and Johor to understand the differences in water accessibility between the two states. Using descriptive statistics and analysis in IBM SPSS statistics, we examine measures such as the mean, standard deviation, and data distribution through graphs and tables. The aim of this study is to identify patterns and highlight possible inequalities in access to clean water.
Right now, I am going to talk about the problem statement. So this study is about the problem of unequal access to clean and treated water in different areas of Malaysia. In some places like Kampung A, people can easily get clean and safe water for daily use. However, in other places such as Kampung B, people still use unsafe water sources, which can cause health problems and make their daily life more difficult. This shows that there are differences in water access between states and between urban and rural areas. Therefore, this study uses descriptive statistics to analyze and compare water access across Malaysia to identify patterns and possible inequalities. Hello guys, so right now we are going to make histogram of Sabah and Johor using SPSS graph. First, at the top of the graph, we have that graphs. Select on that graph and then select chart builder. And then a sample of histogram will pop out. Now we have to fill in the variables. So for this is Sabah and Johor. And then we have lots of types of graph. So we choose histogram. And then we drag the histogram to the sample. And then we drag variables, for example, Sabah, to there. And then we click OK. And then, tada! Our histogram of Sabah is done. Now, let's proceed to histogram of Johor. So just do the same thing, which is select graph and then select histogram and then drag the histogram and then, but this time the variables is Johor, and then we click OK. And then, tada! Our Johor, simple histogram of Johor is done. The histogram shows the distribution of data for Sabah and Johor. The x-axis represents the values while the y-axis shows the frequency. Sabah's values are lower and more consistent, mostly around 1,300 to 1,400. Johor's values are higher, around 1,800, and slightly more spread out. Overall, Johor has higher values compared to Sabah. The x-axis shows the values for Sabah, which range from about 1250 to 1450. The y-axis shows the frequency, which means how many times the values appear in each range. From the graph, most of the data is between 1300 and 1400. There is only one value below 1300 and one value above 1400, so these are less common. The mean or average value is 1337.85. This means most of the data is around this value. The standard deviation is about 52.56, which shows that the data is not too spread out and stays close to the mean. The total number of data points is 6. Now I will explain the histogram for Johor. The x-axis shows the values from about 1650 to 1900, while the y-axis shows the frequency. Most of the data is between 1800 and 1850, which means many values fall in this range. There are fewer values at the lower range, like 1650, and at the higher range, like 1900. The mean value is 1806.83, which is higher than Sabah. This shows that Johor generally has larger values compared to Sabah. The standard deviation is about 75.30, which is higher than Sabah. This means the data for Johor is more spread out. The total number of data points is also 6. In conclusion, Johor has higher values overall, which Sabah has lower values. Johor's data is also more spread out, while Sabah's data is more concentrated around its mean.
Okay, so now as we can see, we have two information data, which is Sabah and Johor. So first we click on graph, we click on chart builder. Then when we see histogram, we click on it. Then when we see this diagram, we drag it into here. Then we pick either Sabah or Johor. So first we take Sabah, we drag the Sabah into there. Then we press OK. Then we have the frequency polygon of Sabah. So next we make for Johor. The same step, we click on graph, we click on chart builder. Then when we see histogram, we drag this diagram again, but we pick different data, which is Johor. Then we press OK. Then we have the graph for frequency polygon for Johor and Sabah. So for the first graph, which is frequency polygon of Johor, we can get three data, which is mean, standard deviation, and also n. For the mean from this graph, we got 1806. The standard deviation is 75.29, and also the n is 6. Next, we move on to the frequency polygon of Sabah. We also can get three data, which is mean, standard deviation, and also n. So for the mean, we get 1337.83. The standard deviation is 52.59, and also the n is equal to 6. Why there are difference between the frequency for Johor and Sabah? It is because Sabah data is mostly between 1280 and 1420, so the frequency are lower and spread out. Johor data is higher, around 1800, so its peak frequency is taller.
Next, we're going to create an ORGIF graph for Sabah state. First, we're going to click on graph on the top corner here and select chart builder. A template will pop up, and then we're going to select line graph. Next, we're going to drag the line graph on the template provided, and then also drag the Sabah variable in there as well. And then we're going to click on histogram and select cumulative percentage. After we're done with that, we're going to click on OK. And finally, this is how the Sabah ORGIF graph will look like.
So for Sabah, the median is where the cumulative percentage, which is 50% and around 1350. While the mean for this graph, it's more likely close to the median, which is 1350, because of the curve looks fairly symmetric. So for mod is the value with the highest frequency, steepest slope, and original histogram, which is around 1350 until 1375. Next, I'm going to compare the standard deviation between Sabah and Johor. So for Sabah, the cumulative percent rise steeply between the smaller range, meaning water consumption value in this range are more tightly clustered. So it causes the small standard deviation, and consumption is relatively uniform across the unit. For Johor, the cumulative percent spread across a much wider range, with a more gradual curve. So it causes a larger standard deviation, so more variation in water consumption. So how the difference in water consumption affect the difference? In Johor, some units consume much less and other much more than average, which causes a higher inequality in usage. But in Sabah, consumption is more consistent, so the average is more representative of most users.
Alright, so today I will explain how to make a box plot based on this data. Alright, first step is press the analyze, and you see the descriptive statistic, and proceed to explore. Put in the Sabah and press this statistic, turn on the percentiles, continue, and press OK. Right, so we got the descriptive, percentiles, and the last one is the box plot graph.
Now, we will move on to the last graph. We will use the same set of data as before, and then we will press Analyze and press Descriptive Statistic. After that, we will choose from the Descriptive Statistic. We will press Analyze and replace Sabah with Johor, which is the last graph that we need to do. But before that, we need to change our frequency so that we can add the frequentile. And then you press OK, and then we will generate the graph. Based on the SPSS descriptive statistic and boxplot for Sabah and Johor, now we will compare these two datasets. First is the central tendency. Johor has a significantly higher central value than Sabah. The mean for Johor is 1806.83 compared to Sabah's 1237.83. In both cases, the mean and median are relatively close, though Johor's median sits higher than its mean, suggesting a slight left skew, where Sabah means and median are very tightly aligned. And for the variability and spread, Johor exhibits higher overall dispersion. Its standard deviation is 75.30 with a range of 208, while Sabah is more consistent, or tightly grouped with a standard deviation of 52.59 and a range of 143. The interquartile range, the height of the blue box, is also larger for Johor than for Sabah, confirming that the middle 50% of the data in Johor is more spread out.
So, for the conclusion, our studies show that urban areas in Malaysia have better and more consistent access to clean water, while rural areas experience lower and more variable access. This highlights a clear gap in water accessibility, suggesting that rural communities need improved infrastructure to ensure everyone has reliable access to clean water.